Okay, we're continuing with the Love mini album, and I am using a corner rounder to make a scalloped edge on another piece of scrap paper I found just in my pink and red folder. I'm going to just trim it so it's a nice neat strip. And I'm inking the edges in a color box fluid chalk ink, or rather the pigment ink in Robin's Egg Blue. I'm going to add this piece of Scenic Route grid paper to the heart. And I'm just going to stick it right on the heart and then flip the heart over and use my craft knife to cut the excess off. I'm going to punch the hole so I know where it is. And I'm inking the edge in the color box pigment ink in Orchid. And I'm going to stick down that scalloped edge. And again, just using the craft knife. I've decided on the pink that I want. So I'm using one of the blank sheets as a template to trace it again because I, again, have something adhered to the other side of the chipboard that I won't be able to use the craft knife to trim around. Now I'm going to just add my adhesive and line it up and put it down. And I had to reposition it a couple times, so I'm just burnishing with the bone folder and using Robin's Egg Blue to ink the edges, and I'm using this other piece of chipboard as a mask so I can get to the edge without worrying about getting ink on that scalloped edge. This is Ranger Glossy Accents, which I'm using to adhere some rhinestones from the jewelry section of the craft store. They're cheaper than bling, and the way I go through bling, I think this is just, I'm going to use these loose stones. Okay, we're finished with this page. On the next one, going to, again, the heart-shaped pattern onto the Scenic Route lined notebook paper, and I'm going to cut it out with my scissors. This time I'm punching the hole first so I don't forget. Easy on myself and ink it before I adhere it. Now I'm using my ATG from 3M, probably my best scrapbook investment of all time. And now I'm choosing a chipboard flourish to use on the page, and I'm inking it in this blue. And the ink is pretty dry, so I've taken a makeup sponge, and what I'm doing is I'm pressing it really hard so I can get the ink at the very bottom of the pad. This pad's pretty much dead, so it's really making me work for it. I use a lot of makeup sponges and also baby wipes, which is what I just used there to clean my mat. And now I'm going to put my pattern paper on the other side of my heart. And I'm just going to trim it out with a craft knife, which I spared you. I adhered my flourish to the heart with Ranger Glossy Accents. Because the flourish is pretty thin, glue dots were too big, so I just ran a thin line of the Glossy Accents on the back and stuck it down. And now I'm putting dots of the Glossy Accents on the flourish and adding these rhinestones that I got from the beading or jewelry aisle in the craft store. Just sticking them down, and Glossy Accents is a really strong adhesive and it'll hold those really tight. Okay. Moving on to the next page, and I wanted to cover the entire heart in the pattern paper. So I just glued it down. I'm cutting it out with a craft knife. And this is going to be the back of the one you just saw. I did them a little out of order when I put it together, but I am putting the video in the order that they'll appear in the book. So this, again, is going on the back of the one that we just did. And now I'm inking the edges of that pattern paper in the Robin's Egg blue. And I've selected a chipboard frame. And what I'm going to do is I traced its rough shape, and I'm putting adhesive all over the pattern paper I want to be on the front. And now I've glued it down, and I'm just cutting it out with my craft knife. And that way it will be nice and tight on all the edges. Sometimes my craft knife and I really just don't get along. It was really fighting me with this frame. The frame had a lot of little nooks and crannies that were really tough to get, even with my small blade. Alright. Whew. Inking the edges in that orchid from Color Box. We've used it another couple times in the book. And I'm going to ink the inside of the frame as well as the outside. Alright, now I'm going to adhere it with some glue dots. First I'm going to play with some flowers to see what I like. I like the white and the blue. I think they work really well with the blue ink and the blue on the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and go with those. I'm just adding another one of those big brads like I used earlier. They are from SEI, I believe. That's who makes those brads. So just sticking the frame down. And now I'm going to put the memory book glue dots on the back of the flower as well. And put the flower there. Now once again, I've forgotten to punch my hole and I covered it up with the flower. So I'm going to have to go back in and do that. First I'm going to use glossy accents to adhere a large gem to the center of the brad. I'm doing that because glossy accents work really well on a slick surface, and that brad is pretty slick. And there we go, we're done. That concludes part 2 of the mini album. We have 2, I believe, so stay tuned for part 3. Thank you for watching.